It seems to me that people in broadcasting, I've been warned about this, learned about it over the years. You can say something on the air that somebody out there who's mentally unstable will act on.
People who are getting hurt are real people. I mean, this man who got hurt in the taxi drive 2 nights ago has 4 children. I think he's been driving a taxi cab for 20-some-odd years. He said in one of his messages that he's never felt insecure in the city before, and now he does. And, you know, there are 2 people in this exercise trying to pull us apart, and one of them is the terrorist who tried to pull us apart in the wake of what they did in 9/11, and the best way that they can win is for us to let them succeed in that division. And unfortunately, politicians can play right into that division, and they can be politically successful as a result of it.
Erica, I want to ask you the hard question, though. Your piece of the Democratic Party was in a state of elation when Barack Obama was elected. Finally, the progressive voice was going to be heard. Transformation, all the excitement. What happened?
One thing that started happening 9 years ago was that a group of millionaires and billionaires started to build the kind of intellectual and communications infrastructure on the left that the right started building in 1964 after the Barry Goldwater election. And so what happened was y'all built Heritage, Cato, AEI, et cetera, a bunch of institutions that a bunch of Americans haven't heard of.
So it's our fault. It's our fault that progressives don't like Obama anymore.
I think she's saying that in a complimentary way. You built a foundation.
You all built a structure, and one of the things that the Agenda Project is based on is the idea that politicians are the least important part of politics. And so what conservatives did was they built a set of institutions that ultimately turned the country in a direction that we're now dealing with. Liberals started to wake up a few years ago, and they started to say, we need to build that set of institutions. And I think that the wealthy liberals started to build that set of institutions, built a set of institutions that are too close to the electoral process rather than to the intellectual idea development process. And so they got their guy in office, and they realized that politicians are the least important part of politics.
Welcome back to the Ed Show, and thanks for watching tonight. A lot of progressives around the country are angry that President Obama even met with the United States Chamber of Commerce.
2 weeks ago, President Obama said, you deserve to know when your elected officials are meeting with lobbyists. Yesterday, the president said he was speaking to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. What he failed to mention is that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the biggest lobbyist in the United States of America. Let's be clear. I just want to be very specific about the point I'm making, which is not that the president is reaching out to business. That's great. You know, I ran a small business for 8 years. I have an MBA from business school. I studied business for 2 years. This is not about the president speaking to business. This is about the fact that the president of the United States just went and kowtowed to a bunch of lobbyists who are standing in between us and the future. Well, we thought it was really important to make a point very clearly to President Obama that there were a group of people from a wide swath of the left, and not just the far left, from the middle to the left, who really didn't think that given the financial state of our country that we should be
And you want to do that by disrupting
cuts.
their telephone service?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. So we didn't know the phone lines were going to go down. What we wanted to do was Valerie Jarrett is one of his key advisors, and so we knew that she has a really good ear to him.
So you wanted to call Valerie. I mean, she's not going to take your call.
We wanted to call. Well, I talked to her chief of staff Friday morning, so he took my call. And one of the projects that helped launch this whole effort is a project called Patriotic Millionaires Against Tax Cuts for Millionaires. And it's 150 people who make more than $1 million a year who have written a letter to President Obama saying, we want to do our fair share at this point when our country's in a crisis.
Well, why don't they just do it then and not impose it on the rest? They could even up their contribution.
That's a great question. And they've been asked that before because we've had a lot of them going out and talking to the media. And what they feel like is, you know, they're happy. They want to say that they want to do their part.
Everybody's entitled to their own. They're entitled to their own opinion. If they're millionaires and they want to give more money to the government, let them.
Let's talk about what President Obama has done for small businesses. Number one, a $5,000 tax cut for anybody you hire. Number two, a $1,000 tax credit for any person you retain. Number three, raising money to let those small businesses go out and get more money from the Small Business Administration. This administration has been a fan of small businesses. What it hasn't been a fan of is people making $1 million or more a year when the whole system in this country is built around people making $1 million or more a year. Carol, I want to spend an afternoon wandering around that head of Mark's. I mean, how he gets from being able to write off every CapEx that you make in 2011, and somehow he turns that into a tax increase. In the first place, when Dwight Eisenhower was president in 1953, the marginal tax rate was 91%. Over the next 60 years, we've just been cutting it and cutting it and cutting it. As we've been cutting those tax cuts back, we've also been cutting teachers, firefighters, policemen. I mean, these are the things that we need money for, and you're asking us to extend this tax cut to people who don't need it, aren't going to spend it. It's not going to be stimulative. Why? So they can go out and buy another jet plane?
Erica,
I mean, are you kidding me? I actually think that leadership means getting things done. And when you all say that they rammed through health care legislation, I started working in politics in 1992,
right,
when I was 21 years old, and we were talking about health care now, and 20 years later,
sure,
basically the same people are in the Senate and the House.
Yeah, but are you
so,
happy with that health care bill that they
really,
passed? Are you happy with it?
Absolutely. 30 million more Americans have health care than did before, and they were asked to take personal responsibility for their health care rather than having the taxpayer pick up the bill when they show up at the emergency room. So
I
it's
think
not a perfect bill, but yes,
you
I
like
am
the
happy
idea
with
of
it.
them being able to ram it through or get stuff
Well,
done.
I like the idea that, you know, we have a crisis and we need to fix it so it doesn't happen again. I don't think that's a signal at all. I think that we have a problem in the country. We're in a big financial hole, and we've had, just over the last week or so, 100 of the country's millionaires step forward and say that they would like their tax cuts to expire as scheduled. The thing that people need to remember is that these tax cuts were put in place. They were intentionally temporary. We are now in a worse economic situation than we were in when the tax cuts were put in there. There is no way that at this point in our country's history that we should be giving tax cuts to people who make $1 million a year or more. No responsible person will make that choice.
Joining me now is Erica Payne, founder of the Agenda Project. And Erica, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, sure. Thanks for having me.
I know that your group released a video criticizing politicians, including Governor Patterson, whom we just heard from in that quote, who've opposed Park 51.
Right.
Why so? Why do you criticize that?
The problem is that there's a firestorm out there, and the politicians, instead of doing something to return us to the very first principle that we wrote down in putting this country together, which is freedom of religion and, you know, freedom to pray in the way that you want, what they've done instead is use this issue to divide us. And I started reading a lot of I've never pronounced his name right, but Anwar al-Awlaki's writings. He was the one of the most wanted terrorists, and he's done a lot of writing about this. And he talks about how the West will turn against its Muslim citizens. And if you read through a lot of his writings, you see, wow, we're exactly doing the thing that the terrorists most want. And, you know, terrorists want us to divide as a nation. They're smart enough to know they're not going to beat us militarily. And so what better thing to do than have us destroy ourselves? And unfortunately, our political leaders are actually taking those divisions and emotions, and instead of trying to solve them, exacerbating them for their own political gain.